Hello everyone, this is the solution video to quiz 0. Now the task is to code a function called multiply 10 where it accepts an argument integer x and returns the value 10 times the value that was given. And now here we have two possible options. You get half the grade, 50 points, if you use loops, for example, for loops, recursive stuff. Then you get 50 points. I'm going to dive into that. But then there is another option, which is the actual task here, that if you do not use loops or the multiplication operator or anything in the mathematic library, then you get 100 points out of it. Now, first let's talk about the loop solution here. Now you were provided two files, two C files, the multiply.c and the main.c. So here was an example code. For example, if we put in 3, then we multiply it by 10, it should be 30, and that should be displayed in the console. And in the multiply.c there's this function that was already given in the PDF file here, and you were supposed to use this, delete this, and put in your implementation in this. Then we could be able to compile it and test it if it's really working. Now, if you use for loop, for example, int, let's say I, that starts from actually 1, and then I is less than or equal 10, and then we have I++. If we printf the value here, %d new line I, for example, and since we have to return something, let's return 0 just to be able to test this. Let's compile it. Yeah, since we have used printf, which is just an example, we don't use that. I need to include it here, so we have this stdio.h, we have to include it here. I'm just going to show you why I'm even bothering to use the for loop here. Now, if we hit enter, we see that it starts from 1, reaches the value 10. So, as you might have expected, we would define a certain result, let's say in sum, and equate it to 0. Then what we are going to do is we are going to add the value sum plus and then the value that is given. Because we're adding it 10 times, it should multiply with 10. When we return the sum, we should get the result that we're looking for. Now I can delete this printf statement here. Let's compile it. Let's run it. There we go. 10 times 3 is 30. So you can use a while loop. If you want to use a while loop, you just delete this one here, take the definition out, place it here. While it is less than that, just get rid of this, increase I by 1, and it should still work. Of course, there's another option, which is kind of, again, a solution here. What you might do for this specific example is that you might return a plus and then copy and paste it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this could also be a solution. Of course, this is a lazy solution and the quiz is not asking for this, of course. So if you submit any of these, you should basically get 50 points because you're using loops. Now you would argue that you can use this here. Well, that's my bad. I should edit here the summation here. But then the solution is also not possible. So there's this thing for this quiz specifically that this is a kind of a cheat solution here. But of course that's not the actual question here. There's a better way, because here the CPU is just adding two things. So there's just one instruction and then the result is again added to this one, a second instruction, third one, fourth one, and approximately in 9 operations, sort of, we would solve this question in 9 operations. It is still not the optimal. If you want to be fast and if you want to use the CPU lesser, if you want to write an optimized version of this function, because the for loop uses 10 times summation, this one here does the same thing, so it's kind of an overkill. For multiplying with 10, what we can actually do is something interesting. first, instead of just adding them using recursive functions or using for loops, what we can do is we can decompose this number that is specially given in this case into two different numbers. So instead of multiplying with 10, what we can easily do in the C language or in any logic unit basically is the following. We can first multiply with 8 and also multiply with 2 and add these two to each other, which would make basically 10 times x equals 8 times x and 2 times x. Now the interesting thing here is that we have actually a shift operator that can be used in this case. If you shift to the left, then by 1, for example, a shift to the left. So let me just demonstrate that to you. I have to include the std IO library again back in here. So let me just return 0 and printf the shifted result here. %d, new line maybe, and that's the result. Let's see what this actually does. If you shift like this 1 times to the left, then since we're actually taking the first bit, moving it back, what we're doing is actually we're multiplying with 2. So using the shift operators, you can multiply with 2. So let's see. There we go. We have 6. We've inputted a equals 3, and we've shifted to the left once, which gave us 6. So if I increase it to 2, let me compile and then run, and maybe CLS. You can see that I get 12. Now, I want to shift it 3 times because I want to multiply 3 times with 2, which makes actually 8. And I want to multiply just 1 time, that would make 2. So this is equal to 8 times x, or a. This would be 2 times a. So if I do these two operations here, you'll see we have 24 and 6. Shifting 3 times, shifting 1 time, and you can add them together, so the result would be then looking like this. So first shift a to the left 3 times, plus shift it 1 times, and that's basically it. So let me get rid of this. There we go. 10 times 3 is 30, and you can of course change it to any other value that you might want to test, maybe 11. Seems like an odd number, but still works. And this is the fastest way that I know to multiply with 10. And of course you can come up with your own questions. You have 16, 8, 4, 2, and then of course itself 1. So you can use these numbers here in order to come up with different questions. You can just add them together. For example, if I use 8 and 2, I can just ask for multiply with 10. If I have 8 and 4, multiply with 12. If I have 4 and 16, maybe by 20, or even adding this 2 here with 22, 23. So you can just use any combination. Then the corresponding shifting, the amount of shifting that would be necessary would be then the following: 6, and of course 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you don't even need to shift, so 0 here. Now, since we are using integers, this is quite special to ask as a question, multiply by 10. It looks silly, but if you think about it, this has just 3 operations. One CPU operation for shift, and then a addition command, and then again another shift. So of course it depends, and the optimization goes higher if we have even higher numbers. If you have a for loop with 64 additions, then you would have just 6 shift operations here, and that would cut the chase, so this would be way faster. So it's a fast way of calculating a multiplier that is kind of convertible into the 2 base. So 10 is can be represented in the 2 base, so I can just use the shift operations it can be a combination of two base numbers, basically. I can use the shift operation. And it goes for, you can also do the same for division, by the way. You can just shift it to the right. Then you would just divide by 8, 1/8 plus a half. Then that would give you that corresponding thing, which is weirdly 5/8 of a number. So, of course, it's not that charismatic if you use division, but it becomes way faster because fraction point units are slow operating units compared to integer stuff. So computers can deal with integers way faster and way better than floating point numbers. And if you consider the double even, then you have the double data type, then you have even a more issue. But computational time is sometimes needed, therefore needed to be optimized. So therefore, sometimes knowing the tricks may do it for you. So this was just a special question that I've prepared for you in order to show how the quizzes can end up in being like. So here you have the example, you have the code, so what you should just upload was basically this. Of course, it's not easy to think this or come up with this solution here, but that is also the aim of the quizzes. It is there for you to have thought experiments. So yeah, see you in the next video.